All right, well, I hate it for us, but the Wi-Fi glitched, and that first video was 6 minutes long. So this is part two. We'll pick it right up where I left off. I said top cop. The Attorney General is often called the top cop, head of all things legal for the federal government. So this is George Washington's cabinet, and remember, I reminded you that as the world has changed and grown, so has the cabinet. This is Biden's cabinet, and it has 17 members. So Washington 4. 240 years later, Biden 17, and it reflects the changes in the world. We have a Secretary of Energy, a Secretary of Education. Most notably, the newest cabinet position is the Department of Homeland Security, and that was created by President George W. Bush after the events of September 11th, 2001. And the focus of DHS, Department of Homeland Security, is to protect the homeland. Department of Defense is the military and responsible for waging war. Department of Homeland Security is everything from, honestly, like NASA and airlines, TSA, FBI, CIA, all coming together to protect America. So just a refresher on what is the cabinet. Let's get to the party. And by party, I mean the Federalist and Democratic Republican Party. So some leaders, some key leaders, and really I've already said some of these names. John Adams, Alexander Hamilton are Federalists. And Democratic Republicans led by, most notably, Thomas Jefferson, as well as James Madison. James Madison, often called the father of the Constitution. So really, I do like to draw a correlation here. Thomas Jefferson, primary author of the Declaration of Independence. James Madison, primary author of the Constitution, called the father of the Constitution, both of them being Democratic Republicans. Of these four, 3 of them become U.S. presidents, are in the first 5 U.S. presidents. Alexander Hamilton is the only one to not be, and he is the most significant not president that we talk about in the early republic overall. So this cast of characters, some of whom we've already spoken of, and this is how they draw the line. Obviously they ignored George Washington's farewell address about factions or political parties, and they chose, right? But based on their beliefs, they chose. What is interesting to note is that while fighting the revolution, we were united, and some of these men were in the same room writing the same documents. But in the years afterwards, creating our new government, they become divided. So this is the setup to America's first political parties. Views of the Constitution, this is what makes them the member of each respective party. Why do they believe what they believe? Federalists favored a strong central government. So what's wild about that is, didn't we fight the Revolutionary War to get away from a strong central government? Yes, the king, the monarch, was the strong central figure of the monarchy. So why then would Federalists want a strong central government? Well, they weren't saying they wanted the same thing as a monarchy. They weren't saying they wanted the king back. But they were concerned with putting power in the hands of the uneducated frontiersmen or the agrarian, not college-educated farmers. That's because of who they are. Federalists were generally northern bankers, often from wealth, and the label elitist. They were very elitist. So they didn't necessarily believe that the common man had the ability to vote for the right candidate to lead the country. And that's why they wanted a lot of power to be in the central government. Interesting to think about. Federalists hold a loose view of the Constitution. We already flushed out Alexander Hamilton and his views on the National Bank. He buys into Article 1, the necessary and proper clause. Just because, and this is for all Federalists, just because it's not written in the Constitution, pen and ink, doesn't mean that it is unpermitted in government. And the National Bank is a great example. Our Constitution does not say, and the government will create a national bank. But Alexander Hamilton says what we need to do in order to run the economy is have a national bank. The Constitution gives me the ability to do anything necessary and proper to run the government. Therefore, we can create a national bank. That's their belief. And we'll look at the opposite right here. Democratic Republicans, the big thing about each of these is they're opposites. It's almost like if you memorize one side of the chart, this party is all of these things. Well, then the opposite party is really just the exact opposite. So Democratic Republicans believe in a weaker central government with power being at the state level. They buy into the president, okay, and this unique position is not a king, it's not a monarch, it's not hereditary. We can elect this man. But they would be more on the side of he is the figurehead representative of our government, not that the chief executive holds a lot of power himself. They wanted power to be at the state level. Massachusetts can decide what's right for Massachusetts. It's a timber, shipbuilding, fishing economy. Very different than, let's just bring it home, Georgia. Georgia is a southern economy and cash crops of tobacco and cotton and indigo and the soil that goes with that economy. Georgia is going to make distinctly different decisions for Georgia than Massachusetts would make for Massachusetts. So their belief was more of a collection of states, not exactly a true republic or union, right? I don't want to use these words scandalously, but a confederation might be a better way to say what the Democratic Republicans believed in. And then their view on the Constitution is the opposite. They have a very strict interpretation of the Constitution. If it was not written down in pen and ink, the same document that we all voted on and agreed to, then you can't do it. Our Constitution does not specifically say, and the federal government can create a national bank. A Democratic Republican would say, you therefore can't create a national bank. Now, we are going to see some growth in their perspectives. And I'll say it like this. We're going to jump into the life of Thomas Jefferson, the life and presidency of Thomas Jefferson in the next couple of days. And while the leader of the Democratic Republicans, who would say, I have a very strict view of the Constitution, let's see if his actions follow. It's kind of like a cliffhanger, boom, boom, boom. Let's see what happens next. Probably guess that while he holds a strict interpretational view, his actions might not necessarily line up. Come back for more, and I'll tell you all about it. Belief on foreign policy. So we're going to talk foreign and domestic policy a lot going forward, not just at this time in the early republic. So we're going to talk international relations means dealing with other countries overseas, and then domestic, that word means dealing with issues at home. So foreign policy or international policy, the Federalists were pro-British. That does not mean that they disagreed with the American Revolution. That does not mean they were loyalists who did not want to fight the British in the first place. And no, this is John Adams, son of liberty, but he's pro-British for the reason of trade. This is a decade past the Treaty of Paris. We are an adolescent country, and hey guys, we need to be able to trade with Britain. Now, a lot of people want to abide by George Washington's farewell address and the clause of neutrality, or what he said, do not get involved in foreign entanglements, and support neither the French nor the British. But Federalists are going to take the pro-British perspective for the reason of trade. We have to trade our goods somewhere. They buy cotton, they buy tobacco. We can't cut them off. We got to sell to them. So the Federalists are pro-British. Democratic Republicans, on the other hand, are pro-French, and this is precisely what George Washington hoped wouldn't happen. He hoped that sides wouldn't get taken. That's why he said avoid foreign conflicts, foreign entanglements, and the word for that is to be neutral or neutrality in the conflict. Well, he also warned against political parties, and we see what happened with that. Our class is called America's First Political Parties. Democratic Republicans are pro-French because they remember that in our time of need, the French were there for us. When we were fighting our revolution and we needed foreign assistance, and especially through the military and economically, and especially their Navy showed up right on time, the French were there for us. Shouldn't we be there for them? They're going through their own revolution, the French Revolution. They are fledgling democracy, overthrowing the monarchy. Doesn't that sound exactly like what we just accomplished? Let's help the French. Well, the other side of that is the French has impressed our sailors, the whole XYZ affair. No, we don't want to help the French. I mean, they helped us before, but they've turned their backs on us since. That was what the Federalists would say. Bottom line is we got to divide. Federalists are pro-British because of trade. Democratic Republicans are pro-French because of the revolutionary spirit and attitude, and they are simply put, they are opposites. So if you can remember one side of it, you can remember the other side just because it's an opposite. Domestically, domestic meaning at home. How do they? What are their beliefs for leading at home? Federalists are in favor of the national bank, really for all the reasons we've already said. They believe it'll stabilize the economy. Doesn't matter that it's not written into the Constitution. We need it. It's necessary. It's proper. Federalists are for the national bank. Federalists are for high tariffs. Now, a tariff is a tax on goods coming into the country. That's an import. And while that might sound like something that's going to make people buy American, see, if you tax foreign goods, you might want to buy American goods. Well, let's see the opposite of that, right? Let's see how that's a negative thing. And hang on, I'll get there. And then finally, Federalists, they favored business. I mean, that's who they were. They were businessmen. They were bankers. They did not grow things from the ground. They knew how to. They sold goods. They produced, economic income, but they were not agrarian. They were business, and as such, that's why they wanted to trade with the British, right? We need a trade partner. That's why they were pro-British. So all these things kind of come together. Each piece builds on the next. The next piece builds on the last piece, and they all weave together. You can't really just take it one category at a time. You do have to see it as the whole, which at the end here, I think you'll have the whole picture. Democratic Republicans, on the other hand, they are against the national bank for the reasons we just talked about. They hold a strict interpretation of the Constitution. And hey, that Constitution doesn't say I can have a national bank, therefore I can't have another bank. They oppose the tariffs, and here's why. They are farmers. They are agrarian. They grow these cash crops. They need someone to sell them to. And when we have tariffs that make foreign goods more expensive, well, other countries respond similarly with tariffs on our goods, or in this case, tariffs on their goods. So they actually oppose tariffs because it made doing business harder. Tariffs sound like they protect American business, but when other countries respond similarly with their own tariffs, it actually doesn't help American business. And finally, who are they? I mean, they favor agriculture. They are frontiersmen. They are farmers. They are Southerners mostly. So that makes sense that they are agrarian. And Thomas Jefferson is going to be associated with protecting agricultural rights, protecting the agrarian lifestyle. That's something he's going to be known for. So certainly it makes sense that he is a Democratic Republican. Perspective on the military. Federalists want a large standing army, or you could say a peacetime army, because you need an army to enforce the strong central authority of the government that you believe in. If you're going to tell states that you're taxing them on this or that you're passing this or that policy, you might need a military to go enforce that law. And there's strong thoughts, memories of the Whiskey Rebellion, where George Washington himself marched out and enforced federal law, and it validated the strength of the Constitution. So Federalists they're in favor of a larger standing peacetime army. On the flippity flop, Democratic Republicans are the opposite, and they are scared of a large standing army because they remember the British in the colonies. They remember that the British could knock on the door, kick them out of their house, take their crops, take their land, take their bed, take their dinner, called quartering. Remember that? The British soldiers in the colonies did a lot of things to the colonists that were not good, were not positive. So Democratic Republicans are concerned about a large standing army. And since they want strength and power to be at the state level, they're in favor of state militias. Georgia protects itself, and Massachusetts protects itself, and we're all loosely collected into a confederation of states. But they don't want a stronger national army. So just simply put, yet again, they are the opposites. Who supports them? Like, who are they? Federalists are generally, you can't say this is 100% the fact, right? But generally speaking, Northern businessmen. That's not to say there were no Southerners who favored the Federalists, but generally speaking, Northern businessmen and bankers, the wealthy, the educated, the college educated, the elites. Also, generally speaking, the native born, those who were already in America at the time of the Revolution. Democratic Republicans, on the other hand, generally Southerners or Western frontiersmen, those who are farming, the agrarian lifestyle, the settlement lifestyle, not business, not industry, not factories, and also largely immigrants, those who came to America without being born in America. And you may remember the Alien Sedition Acts targeted immigrants and targeted opposition or vocal opposition to the John Adams presidency, who was a Federalist. So immigrants, being Democratic Republicans, were the ones largely targeted by the Alien and Sedition Acts. Those are all the categories kind of put together. I'll sum it up with Thomas Jefferson here. Thomas Jefferson says the will of the people is the only legitimate foundation of any government. And that certainly fits inside of his thinking. He does not say that the wealthy and elite should create the government or that you should be born into power like a king. He says the will of the people, the common man. Jefferson is going to be the advocate for the common man, the farmer, the agrarian lifestyle. Will of the people is the only legitimate foundation of any government, and certainly that speaks to those three words of the preamble of the Constitution: we the people of the United States. It's on your PDF here. This is the end of my audio guide. Thanks for putting the two parts together. End of your PDF here, there's several different charts that just kind of line out the differences side by side, Federalists versus Democratic Republicans. I know we all learn differently, so some want to hear it, some want to see it, some want to have a chart and just kind of soak it all in side by side. So several different charts that show similar information, and I'll let you browse those on your own. And this is a shorter audio guide, so you should have time to dive into a couple of additional links. I have posted several. This is a video clip, a movie clip called Jefferson versus Hamilton. Comes from the mini series called John Adams. So just a great representation of these men with a little bit of a Hollywood flair and kind of bring it to life for you. Hey, it's one thing for me to talk about it and show some oil painting, but these video clips tend to bring the thing alive for you, and that's why I like to infuse movies into our class as often as possible. And with the amount of time you have left, this is a YouTube series called Crash Course History. This is John Green. I love John Green. John Green talks real fast. John Green has a lot of energy. I identify as John Green a lot. Identify with John Green. I like this guy. He teaches very well. And this episode is called Where U.S. Politics Came From. So obviously that's right on track. You should have plenty of time in this class to watch this episode of Crash Course History and the variety of other links I have posted. So don't forget, the page that the actual do out is this Venn diagram, and you should be armed with all the information you need in order to accomplish that. And with the ample amount of extra time in class, if you need to go backwards and catch up, it's the right time to do that. If you have time to push forwards and read the next article and start working on the next part of the notes, it'd be a great idea to do that as well. There's plenty in front of you to occupy your minds and your hands and your energies. So a great teacher once said that I think I said this at the beginning of the hour. A great teacher once said, "Be the class that you can just throw a book in the middle of the room, and a great class is going to teach themselves." So be that class. Again, I've shared that story before. You're hearing it again. Be that class that teaches themselves. I believe in you, and I just appreciate you taking ownership of your own learning while I'm gone. I am available to you via email. You know my email address. I'm not going to say it on a video here. And then also, you're probably getting some pop-ins by admin, be it Miss Williams, or Mr. Johnson, or anyone else coming on in. And I want you to hear from me. Here's my attitude on that. Come on in. We love it, right? We like people checking up on us. And my attitude is always, let's show off a little bit. So if they come in and they start asking questions, we don't view them as the odd men. So they're not Darth Vader, okay? They're not the bad guys. When they come in, show off, okay? Tell them what you've learned from audio, from reading, and just let them know that we are on track. Ms. Williams has a great wealth of social studies knowledge. She taught the class far better than I ever have in her classroom teaching days. So respect their pop-ins and give them something. Give them the opportunity to tell me that we're doing great. Right? When they pop in, I hope they leave saying, "Whoo, that class has got it figured out." And even though Swanson's not around, they're still crushing it. So crush on, my friends, from the Republic of Georgia. I'll send you updates when I can, but know this: I love you. I mean it. Mr. Swanson is out.